There is no way and no means in which I have to sell this idea, this concept to people. It is very obvious. Very obvious. So, yes, the charging stations should be set up just like we have fire hydrants, just like they used to have telephone booths, and I think they still have certain areas with telephone booths. But there was a time in America where all across every city there was a telephone booth because back then it made sense. We didn't have cell phones, so they had telephone booths everywhere. Why isn't there charging booths everywhere across the city right now? For electric vehicles. That is how it should be right now, right away. That's not a thing they should be waiting on. These are the things that make it more accessible for people to have electric vehicles as opposed to gas powered vehicles. And because there's no reason for them to have those. I don't have to argue about this shit. The cost in fuel is none. I just go and recharge my fucking vehicle at a charging booth. I go recharge. Okay, let me charge it. Put it to charge real quick, and then I'm off. And they should have these booths all over the city, all over where, in all sorts of places where you might need to recharge your vehicle. You know how long one charge will last you? I think it takes about 30 minutes or something to charge a vehicle. 20, 30 minutes. That charge would last the entire day long. So, no, I don't have to argue. It's just that we are not accommodating a landscape that is conducive to these things happening. I don't have to sell climate change. I don't have to sell renewable resources. I don't got it's just how things ought to be already. I don't have to sell it. It just should be done. Because it's the difference between the old phones in the 90s, in the 70s, in the 80s, and today's modern cellular phone. It's that big of a difference. You are arguing in defense of updating those sort of old cellular phones from back then, modernizing those sort of cellular phones. And it looked the same way, by the way. They look the same way. They do the same thing. As opposed to using what we have now. That is no one, there's no reason for it to make no sense. No one would do that. No one in their right mind would continue using those sort of devices because it makes no sense. It's not efficient. It costs more. It's inefficient. And it destroys the environment on top of that. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, That is how it is. As far as it goes into, because that's just one example I'm using. I'm just using one example. But in all industries, that is how it is. In every aspect of industry. Because it seemed like a little thing, but just that one change changes everything else. Because the moment everyone has these sort of vehicles, it changes everything. Just how you see everyone has the now that everyone has the or have access to these sort of phones, it has changed everything. Because we have social media platforms and all these other things that are created because of it. In the same way, there should not be gas vehicles still being made. It don't make any sense that y'all still making those sort of vehicles. It's not profitable in any way. It doesn't make you any money. You're losing out on money making vehicles that way. It's just, it might be cheaper to make, it might be easier to sell, but you're losing out on money. Those businesses, you shouldn't. No one should even be participating in those. You know, right now, I'd say all vehicles. There should be a way that all vehicles, no matter what kind of vehicle you have, you could trade it in for an electric vehicle. And I'm sure it's in some places that's happening already, but it should be more. It should be happening more often, in widely spread across the country right now. That you could go in and trade in your vehicle for an electric vehicle, or you could trade in your vehicle for a down payment. You get a small down payment on the electric vehicle, or something where you could at least you could trade in your vehicle for an electric one. Some sort of deal or some shit that it'll pay itself off in the end when gas prices shit. You don't have to pay for gas. And then these electric booths should be set up all across the city and all everywhere. Everywhere you see a fire hydrant should be an electric booth. If you could put up a fucking fire hydrant, if you could put up these poles, these electric poles for electricity, then you could put up an electric booth for charging electric vehicles. It should be like that. Anywhere you see in a pole, anywhere you see where you see those lights, those lamps, city lights, there should be an electric booth for vehicles.